You are 10 years old. The year is 1790. You live in a small town near Orleans. Your father is a cooper. Your mother does laundry for wealthy households. Money is scarce. Bread is counted in slices, but the house is warm and smells of soup, wood, and smoke. In the evenings your father shares news from the square. Everything in France is changing. The old order is cracking. People argue, shout, dream. You sit on a stool and listen, not understanding it all, but you sense that the world beyond the door is vast and about to burst open. You are 12. On the streets you hear the words, Revolution, Republic, Liberty, more and more. Men gather by the tavern, argue themselves hoarse. Someone sings. Someone curses the king. Someone swears France will become great. You look up at them and think that grown men live in some special world where decisions are made loudly and forever. One day National Guard soldiers pass through the town. Blue coats, drums, muskets on their shoulders. You can't tear your eyes away. They march as though they belong not to this dirty street, but to history itself. Something turns over inside you. Do you understand? I want that too. The next morning you say at breakfast, I'm going to be a soldier. Your father chuckles without lifting his eyes from his bowl. Our Jean, defender of France. Your mother shakes her head, but the corners of her mouth curl into a smile. Grow up first. You grow up fast, too fast, as happens in poor families. First you help your father haul barrels, then you work at the warehouse, then once a week you run errands to the market. Your hands grow strong, your back straightens. And in your head, one thought, someday you will leave with a column of drums and never come back the same. You are 15. France is at war with almost everyone. Leaflets, proclamations, conscription lists arrive in town. In the square they speak of the Republic's enemies, of glory, of duty, of the people in arms. You are no longer a boy, but not yet a man either. Still, your heart strains forward. Your father notices, and one evening, as the two of you shave hoops for a barrel, he asks quietly, Will you go? You nod. He is silent for a long time, then says, Just come back a man if you can. You don't yet know that war brings people back as anything, cripples, heroes, drunks, men who never speak again, but almost never as the person they were. You are 17. The year is 1797. You enlist in the army. You barely have a choice. Home is cramped, work is scarce, and the army promises bread, pay, and glory. But you tell yourself you're not going because of hunger. You're going for France, for the future, for a great cause. In truth, you're going for the dream of escaping your own life. At the assembly point it smells of sweat, wet wool, tobacco, and fear. Around you are boys just like you, from villages and small towns. Someone jokes too loudly. Someone crosses himself. Someone hides his tears. You stand in line, receive a musket too heavy for your hands, and an old coat that smells of another man's body. So begins a new life. The training camp feels like a country of its own. Reveille before dawn. The drum. The sergeants shout. Drill. Calisthenics. Weapons cleaning. Marching. Load. Raise. Aim. Fire. Again and again. Your legs ache, your shoulder bruises from the recoil, your palms blister, your boots rub your feet raw. But you are happy. You are part of a vast machine. You have a musket, comrades, a marching song, and the certainty that glory lies ahead. Sergeant Lefebvre, a veteran of the Italian campaign, a man with a broken nose and eyes without a trace of pity, stops beside you after a forced march. You've got stamina, provincial. What's your name? Jean, Sergeant. He grunts. Don't die in your first battle, Jean. You have no intention of dying. You learn fast. to polish a musket until it shines, to sleep sitting up, to eat in 5 minutes, to sew on buttons while marching, to hide fear behind laughter. You become friends with Pierre from Lyon, cheerful, red-haired, talkative, dreaming of opening a tavern after the war. He talks about girls, wine, and music as if it were all already waiting for you after just 1 or 2 campaigns. You listen and believe. Everyone believes. You are young. Youth always thinks death happens to someone else. You are 19. You see General Bonaparte for the first time. Later they will call him First Consul, Emperor, Master of Europe. But now, to you, he is simply a man on a horse, small, calm, with a look as if he already knows how tomorrow will end. The soldiers crane their necks to see him. Someone whispers, "With him we are invincible." And you believe it too, because believing is easy. Faith weighs less than a knapsack. The first real battles smell not of glory, but of smoke, filth, blood, and wet earth. You thought battle meant shouting, trumpets, beautiful charges, banners in the wind. In reality it is chaos, in which the man beside you was laughing a second ago, and now lies with his mouth open, never to rise again. In your first battle you shake so hard your teeth chatter. You can barely load your musket. Pierre yells in your ear, "Shoot, idiot!" You shoot. You don't know if you hit anything. You don't know whom. But after the volley and the smoke you suddenly understand. You have already crossed a line. Before this was the life of a boy. After it, the life of a soldier. A month later you march with more confidence. You grow used to the roar of cannon, to wounded horses, to bodies by the roadside, to marching in rain, to hardtack softened in water, to the fact that commanders shout about honor while boots get soaked the same way whether the man in them is a hero or a coward. You learn not to look when the medics gather the remains after an artillery barrage. You learn to laugh at things that once would have made you rich. War strips a man of squeamishness long before it strips him of anything else. The year 1804. You are 24. Napoleon becomes emperor. In the camp this is met with shouts, toasts, songs. Someone says the revolution has died. Someone else answers that France finally has a true leader. You don't argue. You are a simple soldier. You know only one thing. Under this man the army advances and wins. And victory means an extra ration of bread, good wine from a captured town, and a chance to go home not as a penniless peasant, but as a veteran of the great army. You take part in campaigns that will later fill history books. Ulm, Austerlitz, Jena. Names that make generals' eyes shine. For historians, these are pages of glory. For you they are frozen nights by the campfire, blood on a musket strap, hunger, long marches, and the faces of comrades who grow fewer each year. At Austerlitz you feel for the first time part of something vast, almost divine. Morning, fog, the sun rising over the field, officers dashing about with orders, columns moving like clockwork. You march forward, and it seems the very earth obeys the will of one man. After the battle they say, "This is a great victory." You look at the field strewn with bodies and think that the word "great" sounds strange beside so many dead. You get noticed. Not because you're braver than the others, but because you survived where many fell. Sergeant Lefebvre says one day, pouring sour wine into cups, "You've got a talent, Jean. Not playing the hero for nothing. That's rare." A year later you're made corporal. Now you answer not just for yourself but for others. That's more frightening. As a private you feared dying. Now you fear that others will die because of your orders. In Prussia you enter towns where the people look at the French with hatred and fear. In Poland you're greeted as liberators, then as occupiers. The difference fades faster than it seems from Paris. You see that the great army carries with it not only laws and banners, but hunger, requisitions, fires, disease, and unmarked graves. You begin to understand that the empire is not a map in a commander's study. The empire is you, standing knee-deep in mud in a foreign village, taking a peasant's last chicken because otherwise your unit goes without food. The year 1808. Spain. Real hell begins there. Not a battlefield where two armies meet face to face, but roads, ambushes, shots from behind a wall, a knife in the dark, a church where people pray by day and cut French throats by night. Here, for the first time, you feel not war but hatred, deep, popular, formless, without ranks or lines. One of the recruits, a boy of about 16, asks you after an ambush, "Corporal, why do they hate us so much?" You find no answer. Because you're no longer sure you know why you're here at all. You grow harder. You don't even notice it happening. You shout at men the way men once shouted at you. You show no mercy to stragglers. You order a barn burned where partisans might have been hiding. And only at night, when the camp falls quiet, do you stare long into the fire and remember your mother's hands, wet from washing. Would she recognize you now? Would she understand what her son had become? Or would she turn away? Pierre dies in Spain. Not in a glorious charge, not to the beat of a drum, not with a banner in his hands. He's found one morning in a ditch by the road, his throat cut. The day before, he'd been talking about opening a tavern after all, even a small one. You bury him yourself on a hill beneath an olive tree. No priest, no words. Only a bayonet in place of a cross, and a name scratched into a board. That day you understand for the first time that war doesn't just kill people. It erases their future, as if it had never existed at all. You are 30. You are no longer the boy who wanted to march behind the drum. You have scars, a chronic cough, gray hairs in your beard, and the gaze of a man who always looks for cover first. You're a sergeant now. You have a dozen young soldiers under your command, the same fire burning in their eyes that once burned in yours. One of them, Henri, the white-toothed baker's son from Rouen, keeps asking, "Is it true the emperor knows every soldier?" You smirk. "No, but he knows how many of us can be spared for a victory." Henri doesn't understand. He's still too young. The year 1812. Russia. The word itself sounds like the edge of the world. You're told the campaign will be short. That 1 or 2 victories, and the Tsar will beg for peace. That the great army has never been so vast, so strong, so invincible. The columns stretch endlessly. French, Poles, Italians, Germans, cavalry, supply wagons, artillery. It feels as though all of Europe trembles beneath your feet. You march with the rest, but inside, the old faith is gone. Too many campaigns. Too many promises of quick victory. Too many graves behind you. Russia meets you not only with an enemy, but with space itself. Endless roads. Dust. Then rain. Then cold. Villages empty, wells poisoned, barns burned. The Russians retreat, leaving emptiness behind them. You realize a terrible thing. You can fight an army, but how do you fight distance, weather, and hunger? At Smolensk you still believe. At Borodino you simply march forward, because you're ordered to. This isn't a battle, it's a slaughterhouse, the ground so soaked in blood that boots stick to it. On the field at Borodino, Henri takes a cannonball to the chest. A second ago, he was running beside you, shouting something about the emperor, and now he's simply gone. Not dying, not falling, just vanishing as a person, becoming a red scrap of coat and flesh. You stand stunned, then someone shoves you forward, and you keep walking. By evening you can't even recall the moment you stopped feeling horror. Only exhaustion. And emptiness. Moscow, which you pursued for so long, turns out to be not a reward but a mirage. The city is burning. Enormous, beautiful, foreign, and useless. There is no triumphant peace. No end to the campaign. Only flame, smoke, and the sense that you've come too far, and history itself is now closing the door behind you. When the army begins its retreat, you already know. This is when the real dying begins. The retreat from Russia breaks you all, not as soldiers, as human beings. The frost cuts your face, fingers turn black, horses collapse, and are butchered for meat right on the road. Men fall asleep marching and never wake up. Someone falls 5 steps behind, and he's simply gone. You watch an officer fight a private over a scrap of horse meat. You watch soldiers pull boots off dead comrades because their own have fallen apart. You watch discipline, honor, the eagles on the banners, all the beautiful words, crumble under the snow and the hunger. Only one thing remains. Keep walking. 1 step. Another. 1 more. At the Berezina, you lose your left arm. Not in a heroic charge, but during an artillery barrage at the crossing. An explosion, a flash of light, an impact, then a strange silence. You look down and don't understand right away why your sleeve has turned dark and warm. The pain comes later. You're dragged off, thrown onto straw beside other wounded men. Someone screams, someone prays, someone no longer breathes. The field surgeon works fast, like a carpenter. The saw. A strap between your teeth. Blood. Then you black out. When you come to, the arm is gone. From this moment, your war truly ends, even as the empire still pretends to live on. They carry you back with the other cripples, the frostbitten, the ones who've lost their minds. France doesn't greet you as victors. More like an unpleasant reminder that even a great army can be broken. The newspapers still speak of resilience, of valor, of the emperor's genius. But you've seen what it really looks like. A column of ghosts in ragged coats, hungry eyes, fingers black from frost, and no words left to say. 1813 and 1814 pass as if in a fog. You're no longer in the line, but still attached to the army, garrison duty, hospitals, supply trains, among other broken veterans like yourself. The empire is cracking, the Allies advance, towns whisper of defeats. The emperor still gives orders, the marshals still draw arrows on their maps, but you know. The machine to which you gave your youth is rolling toward its end. When he abdicates in 1814, many weep. Some curse him. You say nothing. You're too tired for great feelings. You return home at 31, but you feel like an old man. Your father is stooped. Your mother has gone blind in one eye. They embrace you as carefully as if you were made of glass. In town, almost no one recognizes you right away. The boy who once left behind a drum has come back one-armed, gaunt, with a face that can no longer smile without effort. One evening your father asks, "Well, did you see the world?" You stare into the fire for a long time and answer, "Too much of it." Sometimes you take out the medal and look at it. A heavy piece of metal. It cost you an arm, your friends, your youth, and the innocence with which boys once listened to a drum on the town square. But now you know. True victory was never about reaching Moscow or seizing an enemy's banner. True victory is walking out of war alive and never letting it settle forever in your soul.